Okay, let's dive in. If the last 7 days felt like AI didn't just take a step forward, but maybe shifted onto an entirely new track, you are definitely picking up on the right signal. Juneteenth through 16th, 2025, that's the period our sources cover for this deep dive. Well, it presented developments that feel genuinely foundational. We're talking different kinds of AI intelligence and impact emerging. We're calling this deep dive AI Unveiled. And yeah, we've got quite a stack of material here, reports, research findings, analysis from, all across the field, all zeroing in on the most significant shifts we saw just this past week. Our mission, as always, is to cut through the noise, pull out the really important stuff, see what themes kept popping up across different reports, and, really understand what this new wave means for the near future. Think of it like a shortcut, getting you straight to the core of where AI is heading right now, based directly on this latest intelligence.
And it was incredibly rich material. Our dedicated research team synthesized this week, I have to say. Really dense. It pulled from quite a wide range,
Yeah.
from new academic work on novel architectures to industry news and even reports on actual real-world deployments. And there were definitely clear converging themes that paint a picture of AI evolving in some pretty fascinating new directions.
All right, let's unpack this stack then. One of the biggest things, and it jumped out immediately across multiple reports, is that AI is developing fundamentally new types of understanding, new ways of solving problems. It's clearly not just about making language models incrementally better anymore. So, what was the most striking, kind of consistent finding our team pulled out on that front?
Well, what really stood out, and yeah, it appeared repeatedly in the material we reviewed, is the emergence of systems really designed for distinct forms of intelligence. So we saw reports discussing AI developing something, almost like common sense about the physical world. But then alongside that, others focused purely on highly reliable step-by-step reasoning.
Okay, that physical world common sense bit. That sounds really interesting. How is AI getting that kind of intuitive grasp of reality? What did the report show?
Several reports detailed what they called a world model approach. The core idea is training AI not just on text, but on dynamic data, like video, lots of video. By observing how objects move, how they interact, how things change in 3D space, essentially watching a huge amount of the world just happen, the AI builds an internal model, a model of physics, spatial relationships. What was particularly striking in some sources was an example like Meta's V-JEPA 2,
Right.
trained on over 1 million hours of video, apparently.
So it's learning the rules of reality just by watching, not being told gravity exists, but more like figuring out that if you push something off a table, well, it's going to fall.
Precisely, yeah. It develops kind of physical intuition. And reports highlighted how this lets these models predict outcomes, plan actions, even in totally unfamiliar physical environments, without needing explicit pre-programming for every single scenario.
Great, even completely new situations.
That's the idea. A compelling example mentioned was seeing these models help robotic arms perform complex tasks, like manipulating objects they had never seen before. You just give the AI a high-level goal, and it figures out the movements needed based on its learned physics.
Wow, okay. That ability to handle the truly novel based on learned intuition, that feels like a massive leap. What were the catches, any challenges or caveats the sources raised about this approach?
Yeah, definitely. A key question discussed in the research is how well these models truly generalize, Beyond the patterns they saw in training, can they handle really counterintuitive physics or highly complex, chaotic scenarios? Validation and testing in the real messy world, not just labs, are crucial challenges. The reports really emphasize that.
Okay, that makes sense. So we have AI learning physical intuition from watching, but you also mentioned a focus on rigorous reasoning. How is that different? What did the sources say there?
Right, so on the flip side, several reports highlighted the development of AI models explicitly designed for accuracy, reliability, transparency, over, say, conversational skill or just speed. These are often called reasoning models. Examples discussed included systems maybe like OpenAI's O3 Pro or Mistral's Magistral.
So less like a quick chatbot, more like a really meticulous analyst AI.
Exactly. The material indicated these models are engineered to sort of think longer. They use more sophisticated, often multi-step processes to tackle complex problems, technical, analytical, logical stuff. Reports on models like Magistral specifically mentioned a focus on generating a transparent chain of thought.
Chain of thought.
Yeah, meaning they actually show you the step-by-step logic or the calculations they use to get to an answer.
Ah, okay. So you can see the work. That sounds really important for trust, for verification, like seeing the AI's math homework. What's the downside? What trade-offs did the reports mention for these reasoning models?
Well, the consistent finding, across the reports was that this rigor comes at a cost. These models are significantly slower. They need substantially more computational power. And, that means they're more expensive to run than the faster, more probabilistic models we use for everyday queries. This trade-off, accuracy and reliability versus speed and cost, that was a major theme in the sources regarding their development and how you'd actually use them.
That makes perfect sense, actually. You want instant answers for some things, sure. But for critical analysis,
Yeah.
scientific research,
Mm.
reliability and being able to check the work is absolutely paramount, even if it takes a bit longer. These really do feel like fundamentally different kinds of intelligence emerging. If you're finding this deep dive insightful, we'd genuinely love to hear what's standing out to you so far.
Yeah, whether you're listening on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, maybe drop us a comment. Let us know what you think about these new directions. AI is taking this physical intuition versus rigorous reasoning.
And for our listeners watching on YouTube, please do take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the deep dive, and definitely hit that notifications bell. That way, you won't miss any future deep dives into these fast-moving topics.
If you're listening on a podcast service like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and then maybe a quick review. It really does help others discover the deep dive and join our community here.
Okay, so moving beyond the sort of internal workings of the AI, the sources also painted a pretty clear picture of major shifts happening at the foundation. We're talking the hardware that powers AI. And they also highlighted where we're actually seeing these new capabilities start to, land in the real world right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, the material we reviewed indicated a really intensifying race in AI infrastructure globally. There's a strong push toward diversifying supply chains, creating more open hardware ecosystems, really trying to challenge the existing dominance in the market. Reports discussed new hardware architectures, open standards, all designed to improve efficiency and, importantly, allow different companies' chips to work together more easily.
So the actual physical bedrock AI runs on is transforming just as rapidly. It's not just the software.
Exactly. The demand for compute power is just staggering. And that's driving innovation all the way down to the silicon. We saw reports on efforts by major players introducing new chip designs, pushing open standards, often involving collaborations between chip makers and the big AI labs. What was also really notable in the sources was how this hardware race is becoming a geopolitical thing. Reports detailed national efforts aiming for technological sovereignty in critical areas like chip design tools, partly driven, it seems, by international pressures.
Wow. It sounds like the competition isn't just in the models themselves, but literally all the way down to the chips. So, given all this action underneath, where are the sophisticated AIs, the physical ones, the reasoning ones, where are they actually starting to show up in practice?
Well, the sources did provide some pretty concrete examples of early real-world applications, even though, yeah, some of these technologies are still quite new. One area consistently highlighted was in government and public services.
Like AI helping manage things for a city or even a whole country.
Precisely. We saw reports describing AI assistants being deployed by a national government, actually, to tackle previously manual, incredibly time-consuming admin processes. One really striking example involved urban planning, using AI to rapidly scan, digitize, and analyze huge archives of old planning documents. We're talking handwritten notes, hard-to-read maps, the works. And the reports indicated this just drastically cut down processing times, from hours, sometimes days, down to mere minutes in the pilot programs.
That's incredible. AI slicing through that kind of bureaucratic red tape by understanding messy real-world documents.
It's a powerful illustration, right? How AI can automate these tedious tasks that currently soak up immense human effort. Now, the reports definitely emphasize that deploying this requires careful thought about transparency and fairness, especially with historical data that might have old biases baked in. And they consistently stress the importance of keeping human experts in the loop. For oversight, for validation, that came through loud and clear.
Okay, makes sense. Are we seeing similar kinds of impacts hitting the business world yet?
Yes, definitely. The concept of AI acting as a really capable agent, something that can handle complex multi-step tasks that's moving out of the research labs and into enterprise tools. Building on that idea of AI doing autonomous research, the sources showed new platforms are popping up. Platforms that let businesses build and deploy specialized AI agents without needing, teams of expert coders.
Interesting. What kind of tasks are these business agents tackling?
Well, reports detailed examples like AI agents that can sift through massive, unstructured data sets, the kind of thing that would take humans weeks or months to get through. One example involved processing something like 400,000 clinical trial documents in under an hour for a pharma company, just drastically speeding up access to critical insights. Another showed AI agents analyzing medical research to improve accuracy in digital health apps. This ability to just handle overwhelming volumes of data and pull out valuable information, that's a really consistent theme across the reports on enterprise AI.
So AI acting less like a single tool you point at a problem and more like a specialized digital employee that can run with a complex project.
Exactly. Identifying patterns, synthesizing information, handling scale, doing things that were basically impossible or just way too expensive for many organizations before.
It's clear there's immense progress and, yeah, real world traction happening. But
Sure.
rapid advancement always comes with hurdles. What were the big challenges or limitations that kept coming up in the sources? The reality check.
Yeah, several key challenges were definitely corroborated across the material we reviewed. It provides that necessary dose of realism. One major theme is simply resource constraints. The sheer scale of data needed, the enormous computational power required. Training and running these most advanced models. It means building and operating them is currently really only possible for a handful of major players globally.
So it's not like every company or research group can just spin one of these up easily.
Not these largest, most capable models, no. Not right now, according to the reports. And while there are efforts towards more open ecosystems and partnerships, the cost and the data requirements, they remain significant barriers, which, raises questions about access, about potential concentration of power in the field. Data quality itself, despite all the advances, was also highlighted again and again as a persistent challenge. Even the best models can struggle with noisy, incomplete, or biased data. And then crucially, the ethical and safety issues. Those featured prominently in the discussions we reviewed. As AI gets more powerful, as it gets integrated into critical infrastructure, as it becomes capable of autonomous action, whether that's understanding the physical world for robots or providing rigorous analysis for complex decisions well, ensuring transparency, fairness, preventing unintended consequences, that all becomes incredibly important.
What specific ethical points were the sources hitting on?
Reports discuss the ongoing intense debate around implementing effective safety measures, the real challenge of governance and regulation keeping pace with how fast the tech is moving, and the need for robust auditing mechanisms, ways to actually check that AI systems are behaving as intended, that they aren't perpetuating or even amplifying biases. The sources indicated a clear recognition, within the field itself, that how we build and deploy AI is just as critical as the breakthroughs themselves. There's this real tension between wanting to innovate rapidly and needing to be cautious and responsible.
It sounds like the technical hurdles are significant, sure, but maybe the human and societal challenges are even more complex. So, okay, pulling all this together, these new kinds of intelligence, the shifting hardware foundation, the emerging applications, and these very real challenges. What does this week's deep dive tell us about the immediate future? What's the outlook the sources collectively point toward?
Synthesizing the material, it suggests a few pretty clear trajectories. We're likely going to see these distinct AI capabilities start to converge somehow. Maybe models with physical intuition integrating with those focused on rigorous reasoning to create more versatile, more capable systems.
Huh. A more well-rounded AI, capable of understanding both the physical world and abstract logic.
That's a possibility, yeah. Or at least systems where these specialized modules work closely together. A strong, consistent trend is definitely AI moving further out of our screens and into the physical world, enabling more capable robots, getting integrated into smart environments, impacting physical infrastructure. That seems undeniable based on the reports. The sources also predict continued intense competition among the major players, especially on hardware and foundational models, but also, interestingly, increasing collaboration across different sectors, academia, industry, government working together, like in some of those examples we discussed.
And the push for AI to just become a more common, more accessible tool, that seems likely to continue as well.
Absolutely. Reports suggest a strong drive towards making these sophisticated AI capabilities more accessible, more user-friendly, permeating more products, more services, more enterprise workflows. We're really moving into a phase, it seems, where AI becomes an even more fundamental utility across a whole lot of domains.
Wow. What a packed week in the world of AI. This deep dive into the sources you provided, it really lays bare how rapidly this field is evolving, not just getting bigger, but changing the very nature of AI's intelligence, its underlying foundation, and its real-world impact. It really feels like we're witnessing a truly transformative era unfold right now.
Indeed. Yeah, the pace is just relentless. And focusing on these underlying shifts, the foundational changes, rather than just the surface level headlines, that's absolutely key, I think, to navigating what's coming next. As you process all this information from our deep dive, here's maybe the thought to leave you with. Given this emergence of AIs with, say, physical intuition, and those focused on rigorous reasoning, where do you see the most immediate, maybe the most impactful, perhaps even surprising ways these specific new capabilities could change your own field, your work, or maybe just your daily life for the next year or two?
Hmm. That's a really powerful question to consider. Thank you for bringing us all these insights from the sources this week. It was, as always, a privilege to explore them with you. And thank you for listening to the deep dive. We always value your perspective, truly. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast app, please do leave a comment and share your thoughts on this week's AI Unveiled. If you are on YouTube, liking this video and subscribing with those notifications turned on helps us enormously. And for those on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, a quick rating and review makes a huge difference in helping us reach new listeners. Until the next deep dive, keep learning.